Hi, in today's video, we're going to be exploring what are the keys to academic success. We're going to be looking at habits and strategies and all those things that will go into achieving academic success, whether it's in high school, college, or beyond. So stay tuned for that. First part of this video, we're going to be talking about study habits. And then we're going to be taking a look at mindset and the important role mindset plays in academic success. We'll talk briefly about goal setting. We're going to look at time management, in fact, how that plays in. And we're going to be talking about relationships and how relationships can actually factor into your academic success. And last but not least, we will look at a real life example of someone who overcame some learning challenges to achieve academic success in his life. The creation of good habits is crucial for success in any endeavor that you do. So from an academic standpoint, we want to be looking at creating a workable space, clutter-free space, getting habits of certain time frame. Now that time frame could change from day to day, but knowing that before you do anything else, in terms of leisure or kind of unwinding, you got to make sure you do what you need to do academically speaking. How you go about studying, so certain practices of reading, note-taking, reviewing notes, redoing notes, dialoguing with yourself or a friend, those types of study skills should be habitualized, right? So it is what you do when you sit down to do your work. Maybe you have to even talk it out to yourself, which is fine. But those study skills and study habits are what you're trying to develop. Space, clutter-free space, all those things you want established, and then trying to get that into as regular time routine as you can. I'm always talking about the mindset and how important that is, and obviously with what I do as a mindset mentor, and all these questions are going to be related to that. So some of this does get repetitive, but it needs to be emphasized and put into the right context all the time. But our mindset, again, is essentially beliefs we have in certain contexts of our life. So in this case, it's what do I believe about my learning ability, about what it takes to learn? What are those core beliefs that I hold about who I am in terms of being a learner? You need to make sure those are identified, and if there's any sort of cap placed on them, you want to be able to remove those, and then processes for doing that. But taking inventory is the first part of that, identifying them, because you can't interrupt a negative thinking pattern, which really a belief is, until you know what it is. And many of these are unconscious, which is why people will often hire coaches or somebody to help them with this, help them identify and pull them out. So doing that is going to be essential for long-term success, again, in any endeavor, but because we're talking about academics, it'll have a profound impact on how well you do academically. So one thing that's talked a lot about with goal setting, which is our next topic, obviously, is the importance of writing SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. And one of the things that often gets kind of skirted over is this idea of timed. So when you're writing them down, yes, they should be written down. You want to write them as if they are happening now. You don't want to be saying, I will. When you use the future tense word, you keep unconsciously pushing it out into the future. So you want to be saying I am, or something that is present tense. The other thing is this idea of attainable and realistic, and that can be challenging, right? There are lots of people who've achieved incredible goals, but most people say that's not realistic. You should tame it down. I'll use one from the sports world, right? So Tyrone Muggsy Bogues was an NBA All-Star, 5'2" tall. Now I can almost guarantee you that a good chunk of his life, if he dreamed about making the NBA, had that as a goal, people would be saying, "No, that's not realistic. You're 5'2", right? That nobody 5'2" plays in the NBA." But yet he became not just an NBA player, he became an all-star. So that realistic can be a challenging one. And one of the things I often ask of people is, do you have any history of success in this goal that you're setting? So if it's an academic goal and you say, I'm going to get straight A's, and you've been an all D student, that might be an attainable goal. You may want to start with a lower goal to begin with to get you in the success loop. And that's slightly different than saying, I'm not going to be able to get there, or I can't obtain that, right? Starting with a lower goal because you've had no history of having much success can push you, but yet make it attainable and get you a success loop. And again, it's very much individualized and trying to take an inventory of where you're at. So this idea of attainable and realistic is not always black and white. One of the great challenges people have is managing their time, and we often hear, I don't have enough time. I'm too busy. I can't take on any more. It's really not being honest with yourself when you say that. What you are really saying is you don't want to prioritize the time for doing whatever that is you say you don't have enough time for. You want to prioritize your time on other things. And there's no value judgment there. You just need to recognize that's what you're saying. So if you know you want to, and you really need to be academically successful for whatever goal that you have, then you need to prioritize that time. And one of the keys for prioritizing time is attaching the desired outcome to one of your highest values. And you attach it through visualization, through mantras, through a technique called anchoring, anything that you can do to link that activity to that value is going to help you motivate and prioritize that time. We really want to make sure we also talk about relationships, because relationships can be really important in academic success. When you have somebody that you can talk with, study with, ask questions with, work together, problem solve with, it's going to help your academics tremendously. There's this idea of synergy where 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 when we're talking about human connection. So study groups, even if it's one person, but the more you can talk things out with other people, ask questions of that person, hear what their questions were, the richer, the deeper your understanding of material becomes. So these relationships are important to develop and seek out. And obviously there's trust there, right? You need to be able to trust this person and share, because sometimes, you're bearing your soul with some of these things, because sometimes answering certain questions can be very personal in nature. So the power of relationships is really important in having overall academic success. A real life example, I want to talk about Jim Kwik for a minute. Jim Kwik is a highly successful trainer, teacher, works in the corporate world, sells programs to families, but he's all about how to learn. And he's got reading programs, he's got lots of different things out there. But Jim he had learning challenges when he was younger, and he learned to overcome those by beginning to study how the brain works. So he took curiosity about what's going on with me, why am I struggling with this, began to really study the brain and learn about the brain, began to understand how learning truly worked. And in that process, he began to create ways to go about studying better, take notes, reading, doing all these things that are going to help your academics, regardless of whether you have a so-called disability or not, because he did. But he was able to overcome it because these principles behind developing academic success are uniform. So Jim Kwik is a perfect example of how you can achieve academic success regardless of what people tell you regarding your abilities or, quote, disabilities, end quote. I invite you to subscribe to my channel, check out all the other videos. You can check out my podcast. We're adding more podcasts and more videos all the time. You might be particularly interested in the video, how to get an IEP for homeschool